Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the People Powered Innovation Labs webinar. I'm Marilyn with Concordia's Center for Human Relations and Community Studies. The center, in collaboration with the John Molson Executive Center, is very excited to be offering this two-day workshop at Concordia University this coming May 6th and 7th here in Montreal. We have Dawn Daguerre and Doug Ostrom here with us today to discuss their PPI methodology and answer your questions. To ask a question, please use the chat located at the bottom of the Zoom screen. For the sake of time, we'll just get started with the presentation. So without further ado, let me pass you over to Dawn and Doug.
Welcome, everybody. This is Doug Ostrom, and I'm sitting here in Indianapolis. Dawn is in Montreal, and Bernard won't be joining us because he's enjoying the Dolce Vita in Spain and doing some work there, presenting at a conference. But we're excited to have you with us today. Wanted to provide you an overview with what we're calling people-powered innovation and the labs within which we share this process. And we're also very excited about this because it integrates what we believe are some of the most powerful approaches to systems change, to humanizing organizations, and to, as it says here, creating great places to work, fostering much better approaches to prosperity, great service, and in the process, having positive social impact. Don, if you can move to the next slide, I'll just give a quick overview of what sorts of things we're going to cover today. Now that one. No, that one. So we really want to provide this overview and demonstrate the possibilities and the potential of people-powered innovation labs for the use case and next schools. And Don can share his hands-on and direct experience with what they did and what we've learned in the process. And then we'll come back with a bit more around the why, what, and how of people-powered innovation labs. And look at, it says executive challenges, but it's a nice way of saying, what is it especially useful for? And I guess by extension, where might there be limitations? So where is it especially appropriate? As Marilyn mentioned, please raise your questions as we're going through this using the chat feature, and one of us will be monitoring that and trying to answer in real time. But we'll try to leave as much time as we can at the end to be able to engage in some discussion about what's going on. So by way of brief introductions, as I mentioned, I'm based here in Indianapolis, and I've been a consultant for, oh gosh, somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 years. And my abiding interest throughout all of that has been humanizing our institutions, our organizations, our enterprises, our government agencies, our NGOs, whatever it might be, so that these are places where people can be at their best and be treated with appropriate levels of dignity and respect and just spirited enterprises and work systems. And at the same time is how do you create these work systems that generate real and true value for customers and lead to greater prosperity, impact, positive impact on the planet, and certainly, as I mentioned before, really are humane places for people to work and live. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Don?
Well, I spent about 25 years working with Fred and Marilyn Emery from Australia. And I remember one of the presentations that they have talks about the Telly and Tinney Society. For those of you who aren't Australian, a telly is a television and a tinny is a beer can. And it's a society where people come home from work after a hard day's work and sit down and watch television to zone out and have a beer to get them to go to sleep. And the kind of tired old bureaucracies and personal hierarchies of personal dominance over people that report to you, in large part create those dynamics telling in any society. And it's kind of hard to maintain being a bureaucracy when people are zoning out on television and drinking beer. So I've been very interested in participative democracy and the core values and beliefs of participative democracy and how that works in organizations to do the kinds of things Doug is talking about, and how that spreads to society to build a more engaged, more logical society. If I look at some of what's been going on in Canada recently, it's participative, but it's not very logical. And I did that as a practitioner in the field, as a consultant internationally for about 30 years, and then semi-retired as a professor at Concordia University, and taught students who I love. The thing about students is they really want to learn and get it right. So I for the last 20 years, been an associate professor at Concordia University, and I'm a retired member of faculty now. That's it, Doug.
All right. Well, let's move to the next slide and really sort of have you share your experiences with the next school project. So here's here's the roadmap that this fairly extensive project has followed. But before we start walking through the steps, Don, can you give us just the overview of what the design challenge has been, and then what this particular sequencing or phasing of steps really looks like and entails?
Well, if I don't put it in the kind of presentation language, if I just say it the way we kind of think about it and talk about it, the world is changing radically. And we all know that, and we all know that technologies creating robots and what jobs there are going to be in the future are unclear. So high school students don't need to graduate with a trade ticket as a mechanic or as a carpenter. They don't even need to graduate as computer scientists, software engineers, etc. We don't quite know what knowledge and skills high school students will need on graduation. But it's something like the capacity to learn and go on learning continuously. What we do know is that there will continue to be rapid change, and that you'll get a job and learn that job, and then you get another job and learn that job with a different set of skills. We're seeing that today with graduates, not from high school necessarily, but young entrepreneurs learning how to create not their own job, but their own company to create work for themselves. And they need critical thinking. They need to be able to assess what's real and what isn't real, what's valuable and what isn't valuable very quickly. So that's the kind of student that we want to graduate from high school. We're not doing it today. The kind of knowledge and skills they're learning, and even in STEM schools, are in the past, and students know that. They seem to be disengaged, not involved, don't care about graduating from school or doing well in school. The dropout rate is high. The performance is not good. So schools need to change. Education needs to change in order to graduate people that are more innovative, creative, and entrepreneurial.
Absolutely. And so who took on this initiative, and a little bit of background, and clearly the interest that we have in during the use case is where did People Powered Innovation Labs factor in, and what was the process and the outcome of those activities?
Well, on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the phases. It's really a 5-year project. So phase 1 at the top started in 2016. It was a research and development phase. And phase two was to be the innovation and design phase. And so we were brought in at the beginning of phase two with a whole bunch of requirements from phase one to do innovative organization design for the high school of the future, the next high school.
For what part of the world, just to calibrate it?
This is in the English language schools of the province of Quebec in Canada. And there are 9 English language school boards. I think there are about 80 schools, something like that.
So tell us a bit more then about, there's initials or acronyms in here like STARK and those sorts of things. But what did the actual People Powered Innovation Labs process look like? How did it unfold? What were some of the key steps, key learnings at each of the steps along the way?
STARK stands for the subsystems of a school. Spatial subsystem, temporal subsystem, andragogical or student-centered learning, relational subsystem of relations within the school, and communal subsystem with relations with the community. So that the school is looked at as a whole, it's a whole system within a community. And that was kind of came out of the research and development phase. So what we did, we had about 50 people, administrators, teachers, students, parents, who met my thing isn't working very well.
I think that's the one. All right.
4, 6. We really met 6 times, 5 labs and an introduction evening. And we went through the PPI process, initiate, inquire, imagine, and invigorate. And then we had an integration lab because we did the designs and the innovations in the 5 STARK subsystems. So we had 5 innovative designs, 1 for each subsystem, and the last integration lab puts that together into a whole school design as a template for the next high school in Quebec.
Got it. So we use the word labs and kind of I'll ask you a sort of a meta question around why the word labs and not workshops or any number of things, meetings, forums, right? And then just to kind of walk through at reasonably high level, what were some of the key activities? And we can see in the text here, I hope that it's not too much of an eye chart for people attending, but what were some of the key activities or outcomes along the way? So we have, first question is why the word labs?
Well, for me, lab is more experiential, more exploratory, more searching, discovering, and doing that collaboratively with other people and other systems. So it's important, as I said, to have all parts of the system in the room. So administrators, teachers, students, parents, all together, all bring different perspectives. But if they're interacting together, participating together, searching together, trying to discover together what would be most innovative that would meet the challenge that we had, that has characteristics that are more than a workshop. Workshop might have a presenter, some experience, some reflection on it, but it's not fully participative, radically participative. And the lab is stretching, reaching far out. So we did things like dreamstorming for WOW futures, going as far out as you can, thinking about the most ideal, the best ideal, and then we might come with some insights and develop some provocative solutions that one group that was doing spatial design for the next school designed a park with parts of a forest, parts of water, a pond with ducks and fish and green grass growing, and their structured buildings were kind of in and throughout this geographical space that was kind of on the edge of a town that moved into a town, so that students would be looking at nature, the planet, at the built environment, and engaging in projects to improve that. And through engaging in those projects, learn math, science, engineering, languages, etc., all of which are necessary to be able to analyze and do something on that basis. That's pretty far out, pretty creative, not realistic. Nobody's going to fund it. But so we were pushing for that kind of creativity. And we had people actually build things. So this group had a big flat board and a bunch of materials that they used, clay and Tinker Toys and other things to actually build their space. So that's one example, Doug.
Right. But how they got there through a number of these labs. So the Initiate lab.
Well, the introductory evening is the most important, perhaps, of all, because we did that exercise where you have a team build an object according to a set of instructions, and the one person is the leader and can tell them how to do it, and the builders are blindfolded and have one hand behind their back, and they don't do very well. And then they do it again in whatever way they want to, making whatever innovations and redesigns they want to. So they do some planning and preparation, and then they do a couple of prototypes, and they get it built in about 7 seconds. And that's a very fun, I don't know if I'm describing it well, active, engaged activity that people said, we got it, we understand. We're going from this kind of way of being to this kind of way of being. And in the Initiate lab, we've got to get the right question, a reframed inquiry topic. Topic that people own, that the participants own, and it would be aspirational, inspirational, and challenging. And a roadmap of how they're going to do that, which is basically in front of them. That was introductory evening, and first lab was about 4 hours, 5 hours. Then the Inquire lab was a month later, where we developed inquiry questions using appreciative inquiry and systems thinking. We're looking at questions about the whole system and the relationships amongst the parts of the whole system. And we're doing that in a strength-based, appreciative way, so that we get the assets and capabilities of the system to take into the Imagine lab. In Imagine, we're looking at how might we. Inquire might be how have we or how can we. Imagine lab is how might we be able to do this in the future in really creative ways, and developing some provocative solutions that are modeled, as I talked about in the space lab, space group, for example. Out of the Imagine lab, we've got some ideas modeled to go further with those. We test and revise them in reality. So the participants in the Inquire lab developed questions and then did those questions back home in their real world. Into the Imagine lab, developed models, and then took those models back home to the real world with little experiments to try them out and get feedback and revisions that they then brought into the final integration lab when they put their 5 subsystems together. That's a lot to do quickly. I don't know how I did, but
you did a great job, of course. You mentioned earlier the phrase radically participative. Anything you want to elaborate on there, and the difference that made, or what people experienced as a result of that that they might not have otherwise?
One of the things about radically participative is that we don't use a lot of facilitators. We had some free radicals that would come from in and sit in a group for a while and then move to another group and then maybe leave. So they kind of come in and out. And they're facilitators, consultants, design thinkers, creative people. But there's not a leader in each group. The group is on its own. So radically participative means they have to shape it themselves. Nothing happens if they don't do it. And one of the pieces of feedback I got at the end was, Don, you made us work. We're used to sitting and looking down and doing what we're told to do, and then looking up and giving the report and waiting for the next set of instructions and then getting down and doing it. We're not used to sitting and working together and creating our own goals and our own objectives and developing our own measures. And when we had to do that, it was really good. We really have done more here than design. We've changed our culture. We've changed our way of working together. And it's easy for us to see how to do that with our students. So she was on and on about what she got out of what I call this radical participation. Partially participative doesn't work. Fully participative does work.
And they, as you're suggesting, they're taking that back into then how they work with their colleagues and their students and the communities.
Yeah.
Ways as well.
And that's phase 3, the Explorer Lab.
Right. But at an individual level, it sounds like there's change occurring as a byproduct of participating in this particular way.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else that you want to speak to here, or should we go back and take a look at the larger process and what the People-Powered Innovation Labs have set up as a foundation for the subsequent steps that the various schools and school boards are going to pursue? Can you move it back to the previous slide? Which
I think the one thing I would say about this, and then go on, Doug, is it. No, I can say it when I go on. I think let's go on. Is that it?
Sure, this one will do. But
yeah, preparation is critical.
A quick sense of what some of the next steps are and the larger, longer term process, because they're only 2 years into the 5-year.
There you go.
Yeah.
Phase 3 is happening now. There are 8 high schools that are involved, and they're being called Explore Schools because phase 3 is a year of exploration. Can we take the learnings we got from phase 2 in the people-powered innovation process and make them practical and doable in each of the 8 schools? It's thought that maybe we won't be able to do it in all 8 schools for whatever reasons, but maybe there will be 2 or 3. And the next phase, phase 4, is launching with lead schools. We don't like the term pilot project, so we're talking about lead schools who went through the phase 3 as an Explore school. 2 or 3 of them may start and actually implement their design for phase 4. Now, what's important here, kind of where we ended looking at people-powered innovation, was what people learn. People also learn to be innovators and designers, and they learn processes to do that.
Right.
So phase 3 and phase 4 and phase 5, the vision is that each school will innovate and design its own local curriculum, education process, evaluation methods, etc. So each school will become a ongoing designing school.
Excellent. And exactly. Key insights and reminders. So these are some of the key lessons learned.
We know that preparation and initiation is what we call it in PPI. We know that preparation is critical. But we should have been involved right at the beginning of the research phase. We or whoever is working with phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. There are cultural requirements for administrators and teachers that I described. One teacher described for me. They had some difficulty getting really outside the box. It seems to me that so much of the culture in schools is very specific, very controlled, and to be innovative and let go of control was very difficult. And it took a lot of interventions on our part, more so than we do at other times. So knowing that ahead of time would mean being involved in the research phase and getting to know the system. And the implication is don't forget that. And even when they're bringing you in at the last minute and wanting to move really fast, you really should slow your client down as best you can so that they take the time to go through the preparation phase with you.
Right.
I don't know if I said that well.
It's go slow to go fast.
Yes.
What we see most often, which is jump right in, go fast, and then end up slowing down dramatically as a result because the preparation wasn't there.
And then in the process, to get the PPI mindset, radical participation. Like, we all know what participation is. We all know what a group is. But we ask you to stand up and do the shuffle so that you split your group up. You go to a new group. And we ask you to use yellow Post-it notes for feedback all the time. So all the time you're sketching on your yellow Post-it notes, drawing pictures, writing words, adjectives, posting those for feedback, and moving to a new group where people were frustrated because they want to sit in their group and go through fight, whatever the stages of group are, to get to a good product. And that's how they know they're being a good group. But in these small groups, you didn't stay in a small group, you moved every time there was a new task. And you didn't get to talk about all your feelings and all your stuff. You got to write it down on a Post-it note and stick it on the board for the next group to use. So there are some practices and methods in the mindset and the way of thinking about innovation that is foreign to many client systems and takes more time. Sometimes it did, this time it took time.
Right. And then the third point about multiple client relations and the notion of it takes a village, and perhaps we should make sure that everybody is clear on the various initials or acronyms that we have listed in the slide.
Oh, I see what you mean. DTAIWS.
AI is appreciative inquiry.
Right.
WS stands for whole systems thinking and approaches.
Right. Yeah, and we struggled with that whole systems one. We changed that 2 or 3 times. As Doug said at the beginning, we've all been involved with socio-technical systems and open systems. Emery's work in Australia, and other system theories and paradigms. And really, it's what we're taking that's really important for PPI is it's a whole systems approach. That you're not designing the parts, you're designing the whole, and that you're building the relationship between the whole and the parts. So you can't do this without looking at the social system, the larger social system in which the social system you're working with is embedded, because when we're talking whole systems, we're talking systems within systems within systems, and all the time focused on relations and the co-creation processes, co-discovery and co-creation processes that evolve out of that. The school can't make the kind of changes that they were dreaming about and modeling without support from the other stakeholders, all the other stakeholders. And the word village, it takes a village, is wonderful because that captures the relationships. It's not just that you need the experts in the room presenting to each other. You need people working together hard, fully participative on searching and finding and dreaming and modeling what's practical and then doing it again and doing it again. And they build the relationships of a community or a village of being together doing that. And they take that into reality when they do it.
All right. So you have talked about a number of things that in an ideal world would do differently next time around, and some of the challenges associated with this. I hope this is helping people see that there's merit to not looking at this just as design thinking, which is extremely popular right now. It seems to be hugely good currency. And design thinking, by the way, is just a nicely packaged, systematic approach to dealing with creativity, dealing with innovation. And the parts and pieces of it have actually been around for a long time. It does require deep and profound understanding or empathy for what would be the users. And one of the things that we propose doing differently is the users are not somehow separate and outside the system as part of a whole system's way of thinking and doing. They're part of the system, and with the notions of radical participation, they're also participating in redesigning the system. So it's a direct relationship, not sort of mediated by a group of designers doing something unto another group. Appreciative inquiry is really brings to the forefront what are the strengths, what are the aspirations, where's the energy and the power, the passion amongst the various participants within the system, and how do you build on that, and how do you innovate from that ground, as opposed to, and this is one of the fundamental precepts of appreciative inquiry, instead of starting with kind of a deficiency model or a gap model, and somehow things are broken and need to be fixed, but rather things already embody a lot of the strengths to build on in the future. So, Don, any kind of parting or summary comments you want to make about the project and just anything?
Let's move on.
Sure. And okay, got it. So we have, well, of course, we have to use some of the obligatory quotes. And as Bernard has pointed out, you know, we've had just remarkable innovations in technology and physical objects, and yet our social systems have not, and the design and the development haven't necessarily kept pace. It's been said that technological innovation right now, digital innovation especially, is occurring at geometric pace, and social innovation is still occurring at relatively straight line pace, and the gap keeps widening, and so we strongly believe that, as it says here, to create healthy, effective, flourishing human systems, we need something more. And so how do you create mechanisms, approaches where people can be inspired every day, bring their whole selves to work or to the community. It's about innovation not being the purview of a small number, but rather of the many. And the issue of relationship value across whatever the ecosystem or social system is absolutely critical, and that also speaks directly to why whole systems perspective is so critical. And so it's our belief that integrating, as we are attempting to do, appreciative inquiry and a strengths-based approach, the best of design thinking and other approaches to innovation, and whole systems thinking, all of within the context of, as Don said, being radically participative. We tend to think that this brings some unique benefits that hopefully we can realize within our approaches to designing our workplaces, our social systems, our community intervention practices, whatever they might be, so that we can sort of close the gap between the speed and pace of technological innovation and now what we're calling social innovation. So Don, if we can get to the next slide, we can talk a bit about what it entails. So there are at least 5 of these 6 benefits that we think can be accrued from people-powered innovation labs: accelerated innovation, immediate personal growth, which we saw with the Next School project, and new relationships with which to build the future, leveraging the collective genius with the full support and participation of people in the system, and for those it serves and others who have vested interest. True partnership between the participants and the leaders of whatever the system might be, and whatever people-powered innovation resources are brought to bear. Scalability, I mean, labs can be done in a day, or as we saw, over several months, and as an extended process as you continue to build out and invigorate the whole social system. Emphasis is on building what we would have called historically client self-sufficiency, leveraging training internal resources as much as possible, and then customizing it so that I mean, because every situation has its unique challenges and demands, and so customizing it to fit the concept is critical. And our claim is that this approach, people-powered innovation, is through our way of thinking and what we've experienced, it's the only full integration of truly whole systems thinking, strengths-based or appreciative inquiry, and this more immediately popular design thinking, and it works within organizations, with single organizations, with networks of organizations, and then of course across the ecosystem within which all of these operate. And the outcome is increased prosperity, and not just business prosperity, great places to work and live, remarkable service, and what we hope is ultimately much more positive social impact. Don, next slide, and this one's yours. Don?
Yeah, I'm here. I gotta move you so I can see what it says.
Got it. Move me out of the way.
Yeah, so down the left-hand side in blue are the key factors or elements of PPI that help it to work. It's solution-driven and it's asset-based, and this comes from appreciative inquiry. focuses on what we intend, what we want to create, how will we do it, and creation is using your core values, strengths, resources, and opportunities discovered in the inquiry phase. It's radically participative and relational. I talked about radical participation, but co-discovery and co-creation enables deep understanding, support, and explicit wisdom. And the word wisdom is important. When you get deep collaboration, you're not just working at the level of external expertise anymore. You're working from a position of joy and wisdom. And again, from whole systems, it's integrative. Because you're working with whole systems and relationships between systems, you're working with the interdependencies, how we impact each other and how we collaborate and how we co-discover and co-create together. Practices and structures and systems and people and the business and society, the inside and the outside of your organization or network, what's past and present and what's future. It's integrating all of those aspects of a whole system. We talk about, design thinking talks about failing fast, failing often, and failing forward. But what they're really talking about is learning, and learning is more positive. So try it out, learn from trying it out, improve it, and try it again. And learn from trying it again, improve it, and try it again. Rapid iterative prototyping to learn, to create better, to get faster, to get better, more effective, to improve and evolve quickly. This is a new way of thinking and a new way of practice that people need to learn to be able to carry it into their organizations, networks, and ecosystem. And it's all based on values. Core values of AI, whole systems, and design thinking are similar to each other, but they become PPI's core values of possibilities and solutions that are desirable and inspiring, simple and elegant, responsible and sustainable, and advance our human experience. It's not much.
No. So next slide.
I'm trying.
All right.
I gotta get my arrow back in there. Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow.
mentioned at the outset the word limitations, and I don't know that that's really limitations as much as it is that people-powered innovation labs primarily focus on social systems and on how we work, live together, and much less it's not that it couldn't be used in some circumstances for physical products, designing new household appliances or cockpit of an airplane, as design thinking has, or the mouse for a computer or something like that. I mean, it certainly could, but the sweet spot tends to be for some aspect of business, some important challenge, opportunity, issue within healthcare, accelerating innovations in care delivery models, measurable impact on the cost structure, which living on this side of the border, i.e. the U.S. side, is, well, it's a challenge everywhere, certainly. Ensuring better patient staff experiences, education. We saw the next school use case, well suited for delivering high quality, affordable, relevant education solutions and possibilities. Social entrepreneurs, government agencies, collaborative solutions to these complex issues facing our world today. And the reality is all of these need to be working across traditional sector boundaries, because they're bigger than just business. They're bigger than just government and we need all hands on deck. So if you're facing any of these kinds of challenges, new business, new operating models, how do you build collaboration, coordination across silos and levels within an organization, but also across organizations and across sectors? Building a culture of innovation, and that's exposing people to new ways of relating and interacting and approaching the issues that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, as well as larger social challenging issues. Taking the service, production, research processes to the next levels. Collaboration within and across the ecosystems that all of our enterprises, and I use the word enterprises to cover any type of collective endeavor. So I'm not referring to just business enterprises here, but how do we leverage and strengthen and enhance the collaborative capacity of our networks and our ecosystems? How do we reinvent key management processes and structures? How do we design our organizations so that they are more humane, that they are more supportive of the planet and of sustainable profitability? So, we tend to think that it's a target-rich environment for this integrative approach to innovation and systems change. So Don, last comments, and then we'll just open it up for questions. So I'll ask, I'll sort of make mention. The question is, how could you see using it, or key elements of this within your own context to involve everyone in developing the innovations in your organization, your network, community, ecosystem, for people, planet, and prosperity, and the triple bottom line. And you can jump in. I don't know if you each have your mics muted, or if that's something, Marilyn, that you need to do centrally. There it is. So if anybody has a question, you don't have to do it by chat. Or if you've got background noise and you're not going to ask a question, you might want to put your mic on mute. So what we've provided today is what we hope is a useful example to make tangible some of the work that has been done with People Powered Innovation Labs. But we've also really only kind of given you the essence of the approach. There is, and this is just a pitch, a short and very brief kind of advertising note here. We will be conducting a 2-day workshop at Concordia University the first week of May, so the 6th and the 7th, in which it'll be 2 days of hands-on practice and experience with the process. And we'd certainly encourage and invite any and all of you to join us at that. There's some contact information here if you want more information about the process, or you've got questions that you would like to ask us on a one-on-one basis. And I think if you go one slide further, Don, there's a little bit of information about the upcoming lab workshop at Concordia University. Questions, comments?
Okay.
Hi Don, I'll unmute myself. it's very interesting because yesterday we held a webinar at work on agile enterprises, and it's actually discussed the result of a World Cafe that we ran with C-level executives. And overwhelmingly, the C-level executives said we can't continue working the same way we've been working until now. We need to be flexible. We need to be. Hello?
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 Yes?
Oh, okay. So,
You're breaking up, Carolina.
They said we cannot continue working the same way we've been working until now. We need to be more flexible. We need to be more adaptive.
Right.
Oh,
Catalina, would you like to type in your comments or questions? Because it seems like you're breaking up.
It seems that my internet is probably not very good.
Somehow there's some kind of strange reverberation going on, so we're not hearing.
Yeah, she's back. That looks better, Catalina. Try talking. No, you're muted.
Here, I'm going to unmute you again. For some reason, you seem to be muted.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So I don't know which part of the story you heard and which one you didn't. So just to summarize, we ran a World Cafe with the C-level executives talking about agile enterprises, and overwhelmingly they stated they cannot continue working in the same way they worked until now because the world around them is changing way too fast. So I would definitely see this as a way to bring that awareness and bring new tools for them to rethink the way they work. And yeah, thank you. So,
well, appreciate that. Are there any questions that people that you'd like to raise? And we can do it now or with the contact information. We're happy to answer any of your calls one-on-one by phone or by email. And we're seeing people needing to run and go to other meetings. So if there are not other questions, we can wrap it up. Marilyn, I know you've been recording this. Will you be able to give people a URL or access?
Absolutely. We'll have a follow-up email after this session. You'll receive an email in your inbox. So I guess that's our time for today. Doug and Dawn, I would like to thank you for your time and for this very incredible information session. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And as Doug said, once again, this two-day workshop will be taking place here in Montreal at Concordia University on May 6th and 7th. We'd love to see you there. So for more information, Dawn, if you go to the last screen, our website is there for you to visit. But once again, in the follow-up email, we'll have that link for you. And I would just like to thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you.
Bye-bye.